Oh,
This is
look
the
at
last
Marco.
time. The last time they're gonna have to see my face for a while.
Marco joined tonight. Thank you, Marco.
Brother Cox.
You're on mute, Mr. Cox.
All right.
How are you, sir?
Fine, Bishop.
Carla J.
Good evening, all.
Good evening.
Carla, I'm speaking to you. You can't hear me? She
So
must,
adjusting her camera.
she must can't hear me.
Carla,
Judy.
can you hear us? Carla, Carla.
Carla can't hear it. She can't hear us, evidently.
Maybe, yeah,
She's
okay.
putting in here. She's putting in her things.
Carla, we've
there
been
she
talking
is.
to you.
Carla, we talking to you and you ain't answering.
You are?
Yeah, you put on your ears, please. Judy.
Hello, how are you?
Good. Marco. Vince.
Yes, Bishop. Yes,
Just
sir.
touch it, y'all.
Yes, sir, Bishop.
Pastor DJ.
Good evening.
Bill.
Greetings.
Hello.
How y'all all doing?
Well,
Okay.
Your Honor. Y'all not gonna have to look at my face but a little bit longer. Lori.
Oh, Mariah.
Yes.
Sue.
When everyone gets here, can you let everybody know that we're going to do a screenshot of them so that we can post everybody that was on the Racial Equity Social Justice Task Force?
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if you can see me. I'm in my car.
No, we can't see you, Miss Judy. Can you?
Now
Now
we
I can see you.
I see you now.
I know, but can you really
Oh.
see me?
You,
We can
when
see
your
you
screen
enough
was
to
in a
put you on
different
it,
angle,
get you
we
on
could
the,
better.
to get you recorded.
Yeah.
If I do what? What did you say,
We
Mariah?
can see you enough. Yeah, we can see you.
Okay, all right.
if you let us know when you're going to do a screenshot, Judy, is your photo part of your Zoom account?
No, I don't.
Oh, okay.
I don't have access while I'm driving.
Okay.
No.
I understand.
can,
So Mariah, when you
I
get
can-
ready, are you able to do that for me? Okay, thank you.
Yes,
So Brandon. Jolene.
Good evening.
I'm just calling folks out tonight, so we know you're on there. Sue, you didn't say anything. I guess you don't want to talk to me, so okay.
Good evening. Oh, I want to talk to you.
You're acting up tonight, but it's okay.
That's right.
James.
That's Jose that hooked on, logged on.
If I had known we were taking pictures, I would have put on a sports coat.
Yeah, man. What kind of outfit is that, bro? When you're a leader in the city, what are you doing, bro?
Mr. Curry, it's okay. It's this is the community.
Well, of course it's okay because everybody know him, so he can do whatever he wants.
No.
But there,
you want to run and get a sports jacket?
Yeah.
Go ahead and get it, and then we'll wait to like closer to the end.
Why? I love your shirt.
Make racism.
I love your shirt. Hey, we need to talk.
Okay. Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Yes, keep your shirt, Mr.
Okay.
That's
Curry.
right.
Yeah.
I'll keep my shirt then.
The
I
t-shirt
wish
with
I
the
had
sports
one.
coat is a trendy look, though. I will say.
Huh?
The sports coat with the t-shirt is a trendy look, though. I will say.
Yeah. Yes.
That's right. That's right, Mariah.
we're gonna start in just a little bit. We're giving people everybody a chance to get on since this is the last big roundup.
I think that's everybody out of the waiting room. So.
Okay. Katie, if y'all don't know, took another job.
Oh, wow.
No, I did not know.
So congratulations to her. And
Good to her.
she said she was very sad about leaving me.
I was gonna say, we didn't run her away, did we?
She didn't say y'all, but she said me.
Okay, good. Whew.
Oh,
Oh, boy. One casualty, huh?
Mariah, are we able to connect to YouTube or no? tonight?
Keep getting an error and I'm in the chat
Uh-oh.
with the Zoom.
So there might be some people who are,
better record it then. We'll record it.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
recording, but I'm still in chat with error.
We've been having a lot of trouble with that. I don't know what it sent me a code, but I can't, that's not asking her.
to enter
Carla.
code.
What's up?
yes, sir.
Good
Kim,
evening.
Jerome, you all right?
I'm good, Bishop. I'm good. How
I
about
was just checking on you. I don't mean no harm.
you? I'm good. I'm good. Always good to see you and everybody else.
See, that's why I talk to you, because you know how to talk to me, man.
That's what's up.
Mariah, is that about it?
I think so, yeah.
These are the power brokers, the people who count, who make it happen.
People who finish the course.
There we go. Well, welcome everybody. We're just this is our last official meeting of this kind, even though we're going to be meeting probably quarterly after this, just to try to check up, bring some accountability and those other things. But I just want to I'm going to thank you about 1,300 times for all the work you've done, because I think it's important, good, excellent. Mariah's going to just take and make a presentation, and then we'll talk a little bit about next step.
This is our agenda for today. And I guess, Bishop, if you're finished with your remarks, I will move on to Ms. Rose, who has some comments from the city of Akron.
That's good.
Okay, thank you. We also have Marco Somerville on the call tonight. So if Marco, you want to make any comments, feel free. But on behalf of Mayor Horgan and his entire cabinet, I want to send a sincere thank you to all of you for your past, for the past year. Because so we've been meeting for a year. I went back in my files, and I believe that December 15th of 2020 was our first meeting. So want to send a sincere thanks for all of your hard work, dedication, and research. This is, groundbreaking work, and we are looking forward to seeing the final report with the cabinet, and we will be providing you all with a response back probably in the middle of next year of what steps we have taken to adhere to the recommendations that you have made in this report. Marco, did you want to say anything?
Yeah, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank everyone who has participated. First, we'll start with Bishop Johnson. Thank you for your dedication and your service, and everybody else who has participated. The report is coming out, but I can tell you already, particularly in the Akron Police Department, it has been a great experience. This committee has given us great ideals, and we have a fantastic leader in Chief Milet, and the department is moving forward. And I've been fighting with the police for so long, and I can honestly say that I feel once we're going in the right direction, and I'm really happy about that. And I'm going to thank the mayor for selecting this chief. And I was on the search committee also, but the fact that we have a leader that really understands what's going on out here and is really involved in the community, and I think it's just all good for the city of Akron and the Akron Police Department particularly. Thank you very much, everyone.
Great. And the next thing is looking at the final recommendations survey results, starting with our communications subcommittee. On the right is a graph that displays the complete results And on the left are the top 3 recommendations based on those votes. The first recommendation was establish an office for eliminating racial inequities in Akron to include a racial equity project manager, racial equity training manager, and a racial equity data manager. I won't read through them all, but as you can see, that that recommendation had the majority of the votes, and these were the top 3 recommendations for the communications subcommittee. And I guess I just want to pause and ask whether there are any questions regarding the communications results.
Hey, good evening, everyone. I see Jose is also on the line, as well as Lori. And there may be other committee members on the line. Yeah, we worked really hard as a subcommittee. So thank you, Mariah, for whomever else might have had a role in compiling this survey. I don't have anything to add other than we didn't specifically say a racial equity training manager and a racial equity data manager. We did talk about establishing an office to support the goal and to hire a deputy mayor, and we talked about staff, but we didn't name who in the staff. So I just wanted to make that clear. Not quite sure where those particular, especially the last 2 came from. So can anybody give some clarity on that?
These were pulled from the PowerPoint at the last meeting, where the recommendations were condensed into a PowerPoint that was shared during that November meeting. So that's where these bullet points came from.
Okay.
I'm going to jump in. I'm going to jump in, Carla. I may have snuck those in, so I'll take the rap for that.
Okay.
As that what other cities were doing, I think I snuck those in. So I apologize for not being more upfront and clear about it.
Oh no, it's not a problem. I just wanted to just clarify and just make sure that we talked about establishing an office and to have someone running that office, because I know that it was Jolene. She brought up in one of our meetings to make sure that we didn't have a lone ranger in there trying to carry the load. So the more people dedicated to this work in a dedicated office, the merrier. So thank you, Lori, and thank you, Mariah.
No problem. I do see a couple of hands. Judge Stormer.
Hi, thank you. I did see this. Because I wasn't on this committee, I was trying to understand if you wanted both a deputy mayor, because a deputy mayor would, of course, have his or her own infrastructure, as well as a racial equity project manager, or you saw those as 1 or 2. I think 3 obviously can work with either 1 or 2. I'll be frank, politically, I think you're gonna have a hard time getting what looks like about a $500,000 budget request passed in the short term, maybe, but was it an either 1 or 2, or was it a 1 and a 2?
That's a really good
question.
Yeah, that's a great question, Judge. And we talked about that a lot in our subcommittee. Jose and Lori, jump in. I think what we decided was the deputy mayor would actually be the one that would sort of cast the vision, and that we would have the manager level who would actually be boots on the ground, making sure that it happened, if that makes any sense.
Well, I want to be the mayor then, because it sounds like that's about a 10-hour-a-week job. No, really, I'm glad you clarified that. To me, the boots on the ground would report to the mayor, but I don't think you can just ask them to fund a person who has only that one brief unless they're going to also be kind of boots on the ground. I'm trying to be politically realistic.
Oh, appreciate that.
May I add to that? And I apologize for the noise in the background. We saw that this role was critical as the person who would carry the energy for racial equity in the city. Somebody needs to carry that energy. And we did not see having both whatever office we didn't see two offices. We only saw one. But that particular office would be focused on racial equity. Our thinking being that if there wasn't somebody whose job it was every day to get up and think about racial equity, if it was part of somebody else's portfolio, it would end up not ever being at the top of anybody's priority list. And this way, to have a deputy mayor who has it at the top of their priority list and carries the energy for it and has one office, not two, enough support, then that could actually support a change in culture. But I hear you, Judge. I hear you that the challenge is going to be politically making this happen. And I imagine it will be hard.
And I see that Ms. Judy had her hand raised, and I know she said that that was part of her question, but I still want to give her the opportunity to speak. You're on mute.
Okay, can you hear me now? Thank you.
Yes.
No, that was not a part of my question. My question was, I'd like to know how many people responded to the survey results, how many people it went out to, and how many responded, so that I could get a better understanding of the results.
So the survey went out to the members of the executive committee, which is roughly, roughly 34 people, I believe, and we had 16 responses.
Wow. Thank you.
You're welcome. Dr. Cox.
I wanted to second what the judge was saying in the sense that not to suggest we downplay the role of the deputy mayor, but the deputy mayor and the project manager may well be one full-time job. I don't think either of those are separate. And so we may be talking about 2 or 3 positions, and also a data manager. You can probably hire an advanced intern, maybe a master's student, to do that work. You don't need another manager, and that would cut the cost by about half if we did that to make it more politically palatable.
Thank you. Are there any other comments, questions? I'm hearing none. I will go to the next subcommittee, which is criminal justice.
Mariah, wait. I have a question for the.
I'm sorry, I didn't see your
committee.
hands up there.
That's okay. So with this conversation, I just want to know, how do you all feel about putting this in the final report, or what should the next steps be? Because I see here that there's some concern around putting this forward to the city. So I just wanted to hear thoughts about what is the recommendation to the city? Should we leave it as what the communications subcommittee had, or does the task force want to change that to make it more palatable and politically able to implement?
This is Vince Curry. I'm not on that committee, but I recognize the politics of it. However, one of the reasons why we are in the state that we are in is because of politics. So I think whatever is going to get us from point A to point B, and there needs to be somebody that is responsible for the city, because otherwise, if it's just out there, if we don't meet these goals, then who's going to measure and monitor? So there needs to be a point person whose day-to-day responsibilities is to ensure in all these areas that the city is doing what we've asked it to do.
Okay, I was just double checking. Okay.
Can I just add, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, you're fine. I was just going to call on you. So
Oh, thank you. So my recommendation would be that you take number 3 and make it number 1. Because I think if you have an equity coalition, it's gonna do some of the things that Mr. Curry's talking about, which is you're gonna have an accountability strategy. And then I don't think there's any problem with putting 1 and 2 kind of together, because what you're really saying is we want a point person. So that point person has to have authority, but you know, you're sort of saying it could be a project manager or it could be a deputy mayor, but somebody who comes to work every day, and this is the thing that they're supposed to be focusing on. But if you have a coalition developing the strategies, you know, they can then tweak as you go forward. So, you know, I like wins, but I'm happy with base hits. I don't always feel like politically you have to get the home run every single time. Do we have a long way to go? Yes. Have we come some distance? Yes. Are we at first base? I'd say this task force has gotten us to base 1. So now we need to get to second base. And I think, you know, you want it, it's not so much as making it palatable as making it workable. It doesn't have to be that people like it, but that you can make it happen. So the Equity Guiding Coalition, I think, is very doable. And then the recommendation that there be a point person, which, you know, does give the mayor some flexibility. Is it going to be a deputy mayor? I'll be honest with you. I think that's a very hard sell because the salary level and the infrastructure that go with a deputy mayor. But that doesn't mean you can't have a racial equity project manager who reports directly to the mayor or directly to Marco or something like that. So I don't think it's that you're saying no to anything. I think you're saying, what can we get right now? And then the Guiding Coalition would have the ability to make additional substantive recommendations as this unfolds. That's my political advice.
There
Thank
are
you.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Judge. Thank you for that insight. Actually, if our executive committee looked at our whole report out of the recommendations, this is really recommendation number 1. If you look at our structure, we had levels in recommendation number 1, and it all fits under to establish this office that would be the guiding, you know, that would guide the coalition, that would guide the visual. So actually these 3 are part of our original recommendation 1, establishing the office. And I think, you know, we really do understand the politics. We know the price tag on that it would cost for a deputy mayor. You're absolutely right. But the reason why we said that is because we needed somebody that would have the influence in the mayor's office. So thank you.
It looked like Ms. Zuckerman had her hand up. And then we have Robert and Stu after that. You're on mute.
Sorry about that. I am wrestling in my own mind with what is possible politically and what might work. We talked to several people who have been the solo carry the energy for racial equity in their organizations, and they all said they burned out. That without having a support staff, it just was too much work, too much on their shoulders, and they burned out. And we want this to be an ongoing process. We don't want the person to burn out. So if we could at least have one other person, I mean, preferably more, but at least one other in that office and make it work politically somehow, I think we'd be more likely to get a result over the long term and over the short term.
Can I go, Mariah?
Yeah.
Okay, to answer, I guess, or speak to Tamika's question, if we wanted this in or not. I know in our committee, the workforce committee, we had a very similar recommendation. So I guess I'm kind of waiting to see what were the top 3 out of the results from that committee as well. But I'm definitely in favor of having a role that's someone responsible. I mean, just given what we've done at the chamber, the same thing, it probably would not have moved the needle if we're not deliberate and intentional about having that to be part of someone's job that day to day that's really driving that. And I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but even in our recommendation, when we benchmark a city in Michigan that established this office in talking to the equity officer, he just reaffirmed the need to have someone really driving the work at that level.
Ms. Lacy.
I was going to say almost to the word what Robert just said. We both serve on the workforce subcommittee, and we had a very similar recommendation. So that's all I have to add to that.
Thank you. Ms. Chapman.
Yes, I would ditto that times two, I guess. It is very important to have the champion. And to Carla Davis's point, the high level person with influence. But at the end of the day, what is most sustainable is that every division within the city government owns their part of the work. And so whether that means it is threaded through people who are located within those individual departments, or that this deputy mayor has the influence and authority to ensure that every division own equity work as it relates to their own particular areas. And so a lot of times we don't give this department what it needs. And once the government decides what it needs, I think then it drives who you need. And so I think we're a little premature on one side of the coin and not knowing exactly maybe what we need. So we know who we need, but I would echo that the champion, the driver, the person with influence is critically important.
Any final comments on this subcommittee? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move to the next subcommittee then, which is our criminal justice subcommittee. And as you can see, establishing a civilian oversight board was the recommendation that was also tied with improving training practices and de-escalation techniques, race and implicit bias, non-lethal force, etc. Those two recommendations tied for first place, and the third recommendation was mandating that the APD provide the police auditor access to the body cam footage, or really any evidence, within 72 hours of a request, and establishing a set standard for communication within the Office of the Police Auditor and the police. So those were the top three recommendations of this subcommittee. And I will open it up to any comments or questions. I know we have Chair Rich and Co-Chair Boyd with us tonight. And I see Judge Stormer has a hand. You're on mute, Judge.
That's the phrase of the year from 2021. You're on mute. Yes, I was on this committee. I think it's very important that we get a consensus from the people who are representing the city tonight, potentially, if they can, that legislation will be established and introduced in January to establish the Civilian Oversight Board, and also the auditor information so that he can access what he needs. My understanding is that even though he's full-time, he's having, he's still being ignored. And I had heard through the grapevine that he was being told, not to talk unless he got approval, which is complete baloney in my opinion. And so the issue, I guess I'm asking Ms. Rose or Mr. Somerville, do you have a position on this? Will the mayor introduce this legislation? Will there be any concerns that Because to me, these are easy things that the mayor can do that are going to dramatically improve transparency and also give comfort to people who are, very concerned about police behavior.
So Judge Stormer, Margot, he may have additional comments, but I do know that we as a cabinet are going to look at the recommendations when they come out, and once we finalize the report. And so we're going to take some time and do due diligence, refine the report, send it out to you guys, make sure it's exactly what you want to be submitted to the mayor and city council. And we will talk about that. I know that the mayor is, he doesn't have a significant issue with the Civilian Oversight Board. But I can't say today that it will be done in January. I think that it will be done, if you all want us to put that as something that needs to be done in year one, we can put that in the report as something year one. So what we were going to do is, in the beginning, last year, we requested that you guys give 1 to 3 recommendations and then put it in there in which ones you wanted to be done year 1, 2 to 3 years, and 4 to 5 years. And so I think in all of the hoopla and getting together in the subcommittees, everybody forgot what we asked you to do in the first meeting, which is, I understand it was a lot of excitement and actual, getting things to be changed. But I can say that, and we will work diligently with the mayor. Marco, you may have had a different conversation with the mayor, can give a more concise answer. I'm not sure.
Well, I would agree with you. The mayor really doesn't have a problem with any type of oversight. I think, that's a goal. Number 3, I think we've already accomplished that. He's getting the information. We have a meeting coming up with the chief and the auditor next week or 2. I'm not sure of the exact date of that meeting, but that is taking place. There's been some scuttlebutt about this confidentiality statement that they had Phil sign, which just basically because he was getting sensitive information and some other issues. And it's been a little rocky, but I think we kind of got it pretty much kind of squared away that he's in the loop. One of the problems we have getting him information, now he has his own account, just like some of the detectives have. When someone information comes or about a case, he's able to get that information and look it over. And I think that's been pretty good. I know the chief of police is, and Phil talked this the other day, I know we're coming up again at another meeting. And I think they're kind of on the same page, and the chief understands the importance of the auditor and wants to work with the auditor. So I think that's all pretty solid. But we'll have to continue to work on this.
Mariah, thanks, Marco. I also had a talk with the mayor, and he was very interested in establishing a civilian oversight board. So I'll just weigh in there.
It looks like Ms. Judy has her hand raised.
Yes, thank you. I just had one question. Tamika, since you made that clarification, what do we need to do to ensure that it is in year 1?
Well, that's the first one, and we are diligently taking notes. So we will put that you guys want it to be in year 1. And so that's how we can ensure it, is that it can be that will be the recommendation, that you want that first one to be in year 1. And you've said it, and I think everyone on the call agrees with that. So Mariah, we can just, when we draft that report, we can have this as year 1 from criminal justice.
Okay.
Does that help, Ms. Judy?
It helps me.
Okay,
I'm happy about that. Thank you very much, Ms. Rose.
Thank you.
And I think Mr. Curry had his hand raised next.
Yeah, quick question. Did the committee look at the relationship between the officers and the supervisors? Because it's my understanding that oftentimes the supervisors co-sign some of the improper conduct or behavior of officers, and there's no accountability when that's proven to be true. So I'm just wondering, did they look at that or discuss that as a committee?
I don't know if
No.
Okay.
Rich wants to speak to that, or if someone else from the committee wants to before I jump in.
No, I don't think we addressed that particular issue. No, we did not.
Okay. All right.
But it's a good issue to look at, and and I think that with the new chief, that's something we should also put on his plate. I have to say that he has really made some changes already. Some of the people that we've had problems with over the years, he has moved those people out, and that's a good thing for this community. So we're definitely going in the right direction, and particularly under the leadership of this chief.
Okay.
And I think too, just to piggyback, well, I get Terry Rich has his hand up, so I'll let him speak.
Well, actually, my question goes in a slightly different direction. So why don't you finish the point that was just being made, and then come
Okay.
back.
No, I was just going to say, I think the committee looked at the chain of command and training generally, but there were no recommendations made as far as, your exact concern. But I think they did look at some of the issues within the chain of command when they focused on promotions and how that worked, and I guess co-signing issues, but there weren't any recommendations made as far as that goes. That's all I wanted to add, but I see you have your hand up, Mr. Curry. Did you have something else to that? Or...
I thought I took it down. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay. Okay, Rich.
Yeah, my question has to do with the purpose of having us pick the top three. I'm concerned about the possible implication that only the top three should be recommendations that the task force makes to the city. There are a number of problems with the process of picking the top three, starting with the fact that, obviously the members of each subcommittee understand best what their recommendations mean and what the need for them was. But beyond that, there are recommendations and there are recommendations. Some of them are larger and potentially more consequential than others. But some of what I would call the small bore recommendations ought to be included. I wouldn't pick them number one, number two, or number three because they're not big bore, they're small bore, but they're often quite doable and would have value. I would like to understand better, because it wasn't made explicit, what the purpose of picking three is.
Bishop, do you want to take this one, or do you want me to take this one?
Both, probably. I think what we were attempting to do is the report is 99 pages. And while the full report will go to the mayor and the council, we're trying to find places to start some of these. And that was the strategy behind doing that.
Okay, so, if it's a matter of timing, what do you do first? It doesn't necessarily, it's not necessarily the case that you would want to start your three most important and biggest and most important work on your biggest and most important recommendations first, and save the smaller stuff for later. In fact, sometimes you want to actually get something accomplished fairly quickly, and the larger ones can take more time. So I don't see a direct relationship between the the importance, the potential impact of a recommendation and what the timing should be. It seems to me that it's a kind of a more subtle and more complicated set of judgments that need to be made about, what you do when. If it's a matter of, what do you feature, then I think that's different. And I think it makes sense, to feature, say, 3 per committee, but that's a matter of featuring as opposed to establishing priorities.
So Chair Rich, I hear you, and I understand where you're coming from, but at the same time, when we started this, we knew that we had 6 different subcommittees, and for 6 different subcommittees to put 10 different recommendations to the city over a 5-year plan, the bandwidth was not there. And so in order for us as a community to succeed, we need to really be mindful of what we want to see changed. I understand as an African-American woman that all of these things probably need to happen, right? However, racism was over 400 years. And so to make meaningful change, we need to be precise and thoughtful and know that the bandwidth of the city, if we do it, we're going to have to take time. It's not 60 recommendations are not going to be done in 5 years. And so that's why we asked you all to give us 3. And so each subcommittee felt that it was necessary to give 10. And so that's why we were asking you all to, as the executive committee, to select 3, to give us time and to show what we could do, what was the most important to do over the next 5 years. I think that giving the cabinet members the entire report as time goes on, and equity is at the top of mind for all of those cabinet members, we may implement some of the different recommendations that are in this report, but knowing that the actual task force executive committee selected the top 3, we will be more mindful in getting those done in a more timely fashion. Not saying that we're not going to look at the other 7 from each different subcommittee that was placed before us, but just given the bandwidth that we have, given that we have to be implementing the American Rescue Plan Act in the same time frame, we need to be judicious with our time, and we really don't have a lot of staff to implement all of this in that time frame.
So this is about priorities.
Yes.
Which ones to do first.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know whether everybody understood that when they were picking their 3, but
I'll answer. I doubt that everyone did understand that. I doubt that.
Well, I mean, I think as long as, the limitations of this process are borne in mind by those who are ultimately going to make decisions about what to do first, second, third, et cetera, it can work. But I do think everybody needs to be mindful of what the limitations are when you have a group like this asked individually, the members asked to just pick your top 3.
I see there are a number of comments here in the chat. Does anybody else want to vocalize a comment?
I guess I would like to emphasize what Carla Chapman just wrote, and which is that some of the recommendations are closely related and kind of support each other, and so it might not make sense to pick one of those and just go with that for the time being. They may be better considered, collectively as, as a somewhat broader recommendation. I guess that would be my other comment. I know it was a difficult task and a lot of work to summarize these recommendations, but what everybody was looking at was a summary of the recommendations. And I know that when I looked at the criminal justice recommendations, with which I'm intimately familiar, there were some summaries that seemed to capture what had been recommended in the subcommittee report, and others that weren't quite as recognizable. And I think that has to be borne in mind too. I really think that it's important for the people who are going to be making decisions about what to do and when to do it to be reading the full reports, as onerous as that may be.
Brother Bill, I hear you, and I think that that's a reasonable expectation, and so we'll move in that direction.
And I think too, as Tamika mentioned before, the plan was to look at these as a starting point, and I think as the final report is drafted with your feedback, maybe we can make sure that the summaries are encompassing a broader range of those smaller recommendations as well that support the larger recommendations. So I certainly would hope that we could have all of your feedback as we move forward with the top survey suggestions, if that makes sense, and supporting some of these broader concepts with more complete recommendations that couldn't be included in the survey. I don't know that takes care of everyone's concerns, but I think that would certainly be helpful and a step in the right direction moving forward. I don't know. I welcome everyone's opinions and feedback on how to proceed. But we can certainly come back to this discussion at a later time if anyone wants to connect with Tamika or Bishop. Just let me know. Oh, I see Lori, Ms. Zuckerman.
Thanks, Mariah. It's not obvious to me how to proceed. I understand Tamika's point that that we have to make this practical and something that is doable. And I absolutely agree with Bill that we haven't really laid out, and we didn't know when we made our selections how this was going to unfold. Maybe, perhaps it's enough that Tamika and Marco, that the two of you know that this is simply a set of potential priorities and not meant to be anything other than, not meant to be a task list, as Sue Lacey said in the chat. Because if it's seen as a task list, then people will simply check off tasks. That's my big concern. And so maybe it's in the wording with which this is presented to the city. Maybe it's in the wording with which the mayor hears this. And since Tamika and Marco have heard this, I have confidence that the two of you can take it forward in this way, that this is a list and this is not the list. It's simply some priorities.
Okay, I have a suggestion. Being that the survey, which I saw the survey but I thought that it was And so I don't know. I've been doing so many things, so I'm not going to make any excuses. But moving forward, maybe if the chairs of the subcommittees want to take the surveys back, understanding what the executive committee has voted on, the limited number of you that actually took the survey, and then kind of put in a 3-year or 5-year plan what you would like to see done and how you would like to see the recommendations played out, then that would help Mariah and myself develop the actual final report. So if you could take these back, knowing what the executive committee has done, then lay them out in a timeline of an implementable timeline. I think that's right. Then that would help us, and we will then give that back to you guys. Now, this will take a longer time for us to get the final report out, but I think we want to get it right. And I want to understand that I hear your concerns. And so if you guys could put them in a timeline of how you would like to see. So Professor Rich, you said that there were some that were small that could be done right away. If you feel that, then kind of say in year 1, we would like to see this. In 2 to 3, we would like to see this done. And in the next 4 to 5 years, we would like to see these things accomplished. I think that will be helpful to the mayor and the city. Does anyone have any comments about that process?
I think that's a good suggestion.
So Mariah, we will you can send an email out with this PowerPoint presentation and to the chairs to do that. And then we'll have it reiterated, but we probably will need to meet again next month. Okay, go ahead, Carla.
Yeah, I have a question. I think that's a good suggestion. That just a point of clarity. Are you asking for us to take all of the recommendations, like the 10 of them, and then prioritize them, or the 3?
Okay. All 10, because you all feel very passionate about this, and I have been with you for the past 12 months. And so I know how much work you guys have put into this, but at the same time, I also know how much we have on ourselves at the city. But as I stated earlier, can't take away the fact that I'm an African-American female. So I want to do this right for.
May I make a suggestion?
Mm-hmm.
Would you and Mariah be able to provide us with a template? Because if not, then you're going to get different formats.
Yep, we can. We're meeting on Thursday, so that will be our task, Mariah. Okay. All right. Thank you, Carla.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I see Ms. Zuckerman has her hand raised.
Well, I hate to be someone who would give anybody more work than they already have, but I want to check and understand. Are you suggesting, Tamika, that each task force chair develop their timeline, or that the task force chairs come together and develop a timeline for the overall, the larger package?
Guys like to do. Because I was just thinking that the chairs would develop their timeline based on their subject matter area. Because I think that we as the city can go through that and move that. But if you want to see, I think it would be, I don't know what's best for you all. I think that's up to you.
Well, I'm not being a chair, but I imagine I would support the chairs. If it's possible to come together, there could be a lot of benefit in that. But again, it may not be possible in a timely way. And I'd like to be practical.
It seems to me that the important thing is what I think Tamika was suggesting in the first place, and that is that within each of the areas, that some sort of timeline or set of priorities be established, because I mean, there'll be different people in the city working on different aspects of this. And so there's no reason why, something just to pick the first 2 subcommittees here, that something in communications ought to wait for something to happen in criminal justice or vice versa. I think those can be done in parallel, whereas in the criminal justice area, it'll be more or less the same people working on the same set of issues.
I can be good with that. Thank you.
Mr. Cox?
Bill said basically what I was going to say, so you don't need to hear from me. I think
You muted yourself, Doctor.
option one from what Lori said is, I think, the more appropriate way to go. So I'm concurring with what Bill said.
Okay. Ms. Hopkins?
Hi, Mariah. I know in our recommendations, one of, I think it was the third recommendations we had, we submitted the recommendation for a scorecard to be used in which we outlined or requested, for example, our committee to establish the timelines, the metrics in terms of how will we measure success, who's responsible for the project. So it was a kind of comprehensive list that I feel like if we're gonna, fill out a timeline, then we might as well fill out how we're capturing the metrics as well. So we have a complete kind of summary of how we're going to evaluate each recommendation.
Okay, thank you for that suggestion. Does anyone else have any thought on that suggestion? Okay. Hearing no other comments, I will move to the next survey result.
All right, let me suggest that since we are agreeing that there needs to be some kind of timeline, we're going to give you a template of some sort, and we are almost at 7:30, that you go ahead and just show us those, and then we will work on, rather than having another discussion about each one, we'll be here till 9 o'clock. So
Sounds good. So following what Bishop said, the education subcommittee, these were the top recommendations. The final recommendations, 3 and 4 were tied, so that's why there are 4 listed here. But given that we will be creating the timeline, I guess that is kind of moot at this point. But so these were the top 4 education responses for the survey. I don't know if there are any questions. I know we are trusting the chairs to make those priorities and timelines. So aside from anything like that, are there any other brief comments on these results? Okay, seeing no comments. Healthcare, the recommendations with the most votes were the diverse provider panels and strategies and grassroots methods, the community health worker, city community liaison, and the youth violence prevention coordinator, which is one recommendation that was already implemented by the city, which I know the healthcare subcommittee was very pleased with. And then the third was executing the diversity scorecard, which is what Ms. Hopkins mentioned when discussing the timeline, making the suggestion that we create some kind of metric while we create a timeline for the city so that we're able to use a diversity scorecard to kind of see where we're at as far as implementing these policy recommendations. Very briefly, aside from discussing the priority or anything like that, are there any other comments or concerns with this subcommittee? Okay. And then moving on to housing, these were the top 3 selections based on the survey results here. Prioritize and fund housing improvements in communities with higher concentrations of poverty, provide incentives to purchase in communities where historical redlining barriers existed, and provide funding for mixed finance housing development. So these were the top 3 recommendations. Again, the timeline will be edited by our housing chair. There any comments briefly? Okay, Judge Stormer? Judge, you're
Ah,
unmuted.
shoot, I did it again. My comment goes back to the education piece. The school board has to make some of those decisions. So I'm just gonna ask that group, when you decide how you want to approach what you expect from the city, that, it recognizes that the city itself may not have the ability to do that without the Akron School Board agreeing to it or some of the other recommendations. So I'd love to see it all happen. I just, again, am trying to be realistic about what we can expect the city to do. But thank you.
Thank you for those comments, Judge. Are there any other comments? I see Ms. Rose.
Yes, Mariah, we have workforce. I'll wait till you're done with workforce, sorry.
Okay. Workforce development, these were the top 2 recommendations. Again, looking at the hiring of a chief equity officer, I know as Mr. DeJournette commented on earlier. And then the neighborhood centers to train residents, those different recommendations, the internal review of the recruitment, hiring, and development processes for the promotion of minorities. Those were the top 3 recommendations that came out of that subcommittee. And again, the chair will work to implement a timeline given their subcommittee's efforts and what they've seen when developing their reports. So I will turn it over to Ms. Rose for any final questions, comments, and our adjournment.
Okay, so the next steps. Mariah and I are going to create a template for you for the timeline. And then after that, we have to meet again. Bishop, when would you like to meet again?
We might as well keep it the same time, same station. Tuesday, second Tuesday.
I'm going to advocate, hold on, Bishop. Just because we have holidays. So is everyone okay with that? Are the chairs okay with that?
The second Tuesday is January 11th.
I agree with Tamika. There are at least 2 weeks of holidays. So
want to move it back a week?
When would we do this?
Or the 4th week. I'm thinking because the next week would be Martin Luther King. And I don't know how people, I know that,
Want to move it to the 4th week in January?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
That date is January 25th.
Okay.
That should be fine.
So I'd also like to request that the leadership of the executive communicate with the co-chairs of the workforce subcommittee because neither of them are here this evening. So I think it would be really important to communicate directly to them what the ask is.
I agree.
Bishop will make those phone calls.
Let me say that first of all, thank you for all of your work. You ain't done. We're gonna have to meet again, but it's okay. We want to get this so that it is usable. The city will be able to be practical about it, and that your concerns, all that you worked on, all that you did, is represented in the way you want it to be represented. So I think that's important. We will work to continue to do that. And so you got one more meeting at least, and then we'll talk about where we are after that point.
At the next meeting, we will do the screenshot, okay? So everybody can be prepared for their pictures, okay?
I'm gonna be looking good.
Yes, I think Mariah's gonna send the slide deck out to everybody, okay?
I'll send it around right now.
All right. Okay, thank you everyone for
Hey,
all of your
thanks for all
hard
your
work.
work. Thank you. We'll continue to work at it till we get where we need to be.
Happy holidays.